All right, guys, I'm getting excited. This is interview number 2 of the day. I got Sam Brown in. He is running for State Senate District 6 here in Knoxville. We'll get into some details about what parts of Knoxville District 6 includes and stuff like that as well. Like I said, this is number 2 today. I had Matthew Parker earlier. That was a fantastic interview. Get on there and listen to him if you're in that district. And even if you're not, it's important for you, even if these people aren't your direct representatives, they do affect your life, and it is important to know so that you have something to talk to your direct representative about what you need to fix about the other person on the other side. So we are on the 3rd of August. Election day, at least for this conversation, is the primary is on Thursday, the 6th of August. Get out there and do it if you haven't already. If you have already, good for you. Hopefully you voted for Sam, and let's get started. All right, Sam, welcome to the show. I always like to start off with a little bit of like the personal background, what got you into both Knoxville in and of itself, and then the idea of politics, and then what actually was is there a specific moment in time that jumped you over into, I'm going to be a part of this, not just a bystander and a voter?
Yeah, thank you, Seth, for having me on. I really do appreciate this opportunity. And for those of you who do this work in communications and media, I think that the work that you do is very important, and even more so in a climate when there is really such an attack on free press. I really, I don't take it lightly. People like you taking their time to make sure the public gets to hear from those seeking to lead them. So thank you for this opportunity.
Thanks for coming.
I am born and bred East Tennessean, grew up in Knoxville, East Knoxville specifically. So District 6 is my home. I have always had an interest in politics, so to speak, and been involved in leadership. If you were to begin, I would say it began in high school. I was president of my graduating class.
What high school was that?
Austin East.
Okay. Roadrunners, what's up?
Yes, sir. Beat. I graduated in 2005, and we were the first project grad graduating class. And that just gave us a lot of opportunities to engage with community leaders. One of the benefits we had as a project grad, a scholar, we attended the Tennessee Black Caucus, Legislative Black Caucus retreat in Chattanooga. And what they do is they take student leaders from across the state and basically take them through the ins and outs or the everydays of being a state legislator or lawmaker.
See, I would have liked to have done that, even though I didn't necessarily have a career in politics. I'd like to do that today. That's one of the things that's really big to us. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, you're fine.
But so one of the things that's really big to us is like I said to you in while we are getting set up, is that like we are kind of proud of the fact that we don't know what we're doing, because my personal exploration into having a better understanding of how and who and the parts and pieces and movements and all that stuff that's going on in politics or locally, I've always argued is important, but I haven't known what's going on. And so most of this is just me trying to learn what's going on, but I'm hoping through the education that I'm getting through doing this, I'm able to pass that on and have people understand better. Because one of the big ones currently that's going on is there's this big argument about whether or not the law director is going to stay in elected position or not. I didn't even know what a law director was. I mean, we have the district attorney, we have the public defender's office, which are both elected. Public defender, which we're special in because most counties don't have an elected public defender. Usually it's an appointed position, as well as a law director. And it's like, well, these are 3 different lawyer people, and I don't know who's doing what where, And so literally just through doing this, trying to figure out what's going on, trying to figure out who I vote for, who's in my district, who is supposed to be responsible and react to my needs. I'm figuring out who these people are and what they do. And so for those of you that listened to the Matthew Park earlier, just to finish the thought, the law director is essentially the attorney for the county mayor's office and the county commission. So when they have a question about like, is this something that we can do inside the Knox County charter, this law director, that's his job, is to clarify those points. Most counties, it's appointed by the mayor. So anyway, I interrupted your story with that. Like I said, part of this is education. So because one of the things in the few outlets that are out there that do kind of do anything about, they just assume who we're talking about and what we're talking about. It's been a big mess, and I've talked about a number of different people about how weird it is to try to figure out who is in my district. or more importantly, what district is mine, and then who is in it. Because like I've got a sample ballot here that I printed off, and it's the entire county. So it's
Yes.
got District 2, it's got District 15, it's got state, it's got reps, it's got all these different things on it. And I'm going through and crossing off boxes that aren't me to figure out
Right.
who I actually need to do the research on personally. And that's
Hmm.
something I'm trying to get the county, or I want to, after, at least after Thursday, if maybe not after November, I want to get an election commission official in here and really talk to them about some different things about how this system works, how these stupid lines are drawn. Gerrymandering is a big thing that a lot of people, I think, if you put it to a vote, I don't know how you put it to a vote specifically, but I think if you put it to a vote, I think congressional pay, gerrymandering, and term limits would all be automatic if it voted on. But since the people that are affected by this are the ones that get to make the decisions on this, they're not going to put that out to the public and let them do that. So that's a big complaint of mine personally. But I got off track again. So you did you got to go down to Chattanooga. You got to hang out with the state Black Caucus and kind of learn the ins and outs,
Yes.
and
Right.
that
The
kind of got you the next level into politics as far as you always were active, but now you got to see the real thing in action.
Right. And so we had a time where we passed mock legislation. Speaker pro tem at the time was the late Lois DeBerry out of Shelby County. And she really was encouraging to us. And that's what inspired me when I went to college to major in political science. And so I studied that, got the academic training, and then um, graduated in 2011. And in 2012, the following summer, the Democratic National Convention was in Charlotte, North Carolina. And that provided me an opportunity for an internship. And from there, I really began to get heavily involved with the Democratic Party. I had a few subsequent internships and fellowships following the DNC. And then when my work with church moved me back home, I immediately became involved here on the local scene. My first, I would say, time out moving back, I was campaign manager for John Butler when he ran for City Council District 6.
Okay.
And following that, I managed Evity Satterfield's school board campaign. And we were very successful in that campaign, taking the win with over 70% of the vote in the primary.
Very
So
nice.
that was encouraging. And after that, I was elected to serve as district representative for District 1, representative for KCDP, and just getting involved, learning people around the whole county in the party, seeing what the needs are of all the constituents in the county and what policy is really going to be progressive. And so that's what really led me to offering myself to run
Okay.
for an office, because I saw that the people I was working with day in and day out, that I was forming these relationships with, and really growing a fondness for and friendships that I really hope will last a lifetime. I'm seeing that a policy coming out of Nashville really doesn't serve them well,
Right.
and they really haven't had the opportunity for someone else to choose from because Senator Massey hasn't been challenged the past two cycles, and so
How long has she been?
we
Okay, so that's a clarification because I don't get to vote for you. You are in my district, but I'm a registered Republican. I've been that way since I was 18. Um,
okay.
I don't know if you've gotten to listen to us much yet. I usually I call myself a libertarian. I'm more libertarian than anything else.
Hmm.
But the way the commission works, and this is one of the things I want to get on the commission and talk to the
Hmm.
commission about, is I don't get to vote in your primary. I'm stuck with Massey because I don't have she's running unopposed in the primary, but
Right.
between you and Jane George that's coming on later, I'm gonna talk to you. I'm gonna talk to her. I don't get to pick. I don't get to
Right.
make a decision on that because I'm registered a Republican, and I understand some of the logic to that. But I'm not really a Republican either. But if I register as an independent in Knoxville, I don't get any primary ballots,
Right. Right.
and that seems illogical to me. I think I should, if I'm sitting back and like I said, I have you and Jane today, and then for theoretical, if somebody was running against Becky on the Republican side in the primary, I'd have two sets of two people to choose from on who I want to go head to head, and then I get to pick the one from there. That's what I would like to see,
Hmm.
and that's how I sit as a voter. I don't care personally about your party affiliation. I
Hmm.
care more about whether it's a qualifications list that fits the job, or goals and intent and integrity and honesty and stuff like that. Those are things I care about. It doesn't matter. The R&D doesn't matter to me.
Right.
And that's a bigger system issue that I want to try to tackle, at least an understanding for, so that I could see if there is a solution on the other side. But so, yeah, I mean, that brought me to a question that I don't know the answer to. So educate me on, is this a term limited position?
No, it's not term limited. No.
Okay. So is it how many years per term?
4-year term.
4-year term. So Becky's been in there for getting on 8 years now.
Mm-hmm.
7.5.
Well, yeah.
Because, I mean, the Duncan family, she's a Duncan. The Duncan family's been major politics around here for a long time. I met Jimmy once. I sat down with him and talked to him about an issue I was having as a business owner, and he was responsive. Don't know if he was responsive because what I was asking for was something he was going to do anyway or not. I don't know. But he was a nice dude. I got the obligatory picture with me and him, and I have a suit and tie on, which is weird for me. But that was maybe one of the beginnings of me starting to get into the process. It's like, this guy's been here forever. How's he, this family's been here forever. I don't necessarily like the idea of a dynasty unless they're doing well. And then I guess the conversation is if we agree that they're doing well or not. And I am going to reach out to her after August 6th, because right now it doesn't matter to her. I'm trying to get as much in before Thursday as possible to get as much information to as many people as well as myself who are looking at this Thursday election. So I lost my train of thought. You offer yourself up. So, okay. So that was what I was going to ask. I'm sorry. I wanted to clarify, what is District 6 in the Senate seat in Knoxville?
Yes. So District 6, you mentioned gerrymandering earlier. The way our senatorial districts are drawn in Knox County is a textbook example of gerrymandering. District 6 runs the entire length of the county, if you will, east to west. Communities included in District 6 include Carter Community, Gibbs, Kodak, Mascot, going further west, of course, East Knoxville, Park Ridge, Holston Hills, Sequoia Hills, North Shore, Westland area, West Knox County, Concord, and some parts of Farragut.
So we have two different districts that run through Knox County. Is that what am I understanding?
Well, there's really 3, 6, 7, and 8.
Okay.
A small portion of District 8 touches Knox County, but the majority of 8 is in Anderson County. But
okay.
Portion of Knox County up there in like the Powell area is in District 8
okay.
as well. But the majority of Knox County is 6 and 7. And essentially, Kingston Pike kind of serves as the divider. If you were to look at it on a map, okay, everything south of Kingston Pike is District 6. Most of the things north of Kingston Pike is District 7.
Okay, so yeah, in the gerrymandering conversation, assuming that at least traditionally more of West Knoxville seems to be more of a red section, more of Central and East Knoxville tends to be blue. They're trying to pull as much of that blue into a major red section as possible to overtake it.
Absolutely. And so what's funny, in every other district, when you talk about City District 6, when you talk about County District 1, even House District 15, downtown and East Knoxville and the university are always together. Mm-hmm. When it comes to the Senate districts, for whatever reason, the University of Tennessee and downtown are with District 7. And the rest of East Knoxville is with District 6. So I think that may be some type of intentional effort to dilute the progressive vote, you know, in either of those districts. I think if you were to put downtown and the university back with Senate District 6, because they were at one time, I believe, a Democrat would have a better shot of getting elected.
Right. Okay. I mean, like I said, these are the interesting things to me that not necessarily have anything to do with you personally, but these are the interesting things to me. I mean, because, at the end of the day, you go into Thursday, you pull it off Thursday, and you take the side of that ticket. That's something to talk about. Some people need to know about, and that's something that I, who can't vote for you in the primary, but can vote for you in the general, care about, and I want to hear about, and I want to understand. And so it's important for me to know that you know better than I do as far as things like that go. So, we got the general map of District 6. So, I try to, and again, like I said, you're not actually somebody I get to vote for, but I will get to vote for. I haven't gotten a lot of opportunity to research you, partially because I wanted to go in half blind. So, what are some of your key issues that you think you stands you apart, first against Jane and then against Becky?
Right. Well, for one, education is my I would say my first pillar of my platform. I know firsthand that it is only through education. Well, let me not say only through education. Education is the surest way to upward mobility. And I think the reason why so many people have been locked out of that is because a government has not done its role while providing public education and K through 12 mandating that we have not provided the best system of education to our people, and then we have not provided the best program of success post K through 12. For so long, it was this narrative: you've got to go to a 4-year liberal arts institution, and if you don't, you're not successful. You
Right.
know, and so many brilliant minds, so many capable, workers that could have contributed in so many ways to our economy fell by the wayside
Right.
because our system of education failed to serve them as well.
Right. I agree. One of my
Uh,
big personal
mm,
sticking points, and I went into this with Matthew Park a little earlier, is I don't like the lottery scholarship. I think it's stupid. I think it's a stupid. I don't mind the lottery as a whole, but I think the idea that's leave everything about it except spend all that money in K through 12. We don't need more people going to college. We need smart people graduating high school. That's what
mhm.
drives me crazy. It's like it's just send them through the public system and get them out, and then we'll fix it in college. Well, let's get them out decent. Let's get them out solid and functional as human beings straight out of high school. And then if they have a particular inclination, whether it's a trade school, whether it's, mechanics of some sort, or whether it's, a liberal arts degree or something like that, then they could go see those things and they have a better base to move on with. But we graduate, honestly, like I've got 2 kids that are in the Knox County school system, and especially right
Mm,
now, it's a real hard time, and I'm not a Bob Thomas fan. I've complained about him very often on the show, and I will continue to. I think um, he's 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 operating scared, and I think that fear is making weak decisions, not good or bad, just weak decisions, that is not in the best interest of the students and the parents as well. And one of the things to me too, for anybody listening who doesn't have kids out there, if you look at the way Knox County works, tax money wise, funding wise, budget wise, all that stuff, whether you have kids or not, Knox County School Board is a separate governing body that you have to deal with, whether you have kids or not. Your tax money goes there. They spend it the way they spend it. Doesn't matter if you have kids or not. So caring about what's going on in the school board for those of you who aren't parents is super important. It's truly, it's essentially half of our city county budget combined goes to that
mm.
school board, and they answer to nobody except for budget conversations, and that's it. So that's one of the big things for me too. So, you say education, and one of the things when I had Gina Oster on, who's running for the same kind of general part of Knox County, or at least my part of Knox County, against Eddie Manis in that primary coming up Thursday, both of them made education a big deal. And one of the things I get confused about, and again, this is a functional thing, like understand budget and at the state level is a huge part of education, getting money allocated to the school systems. But what other stuff is going on in House hearings, or not House hearings, but House meetings and conversation about that affects the schools directly, that you would be involved with as the representative?
Yeah, so one thing that is being dealt with now that's in our education commissioner's plan is a plan of reciprocity for educators. So if you have someone who, let's say, is licensed to teach in Georgia or North Carolina or South Carolina or
Mm-hmm.
New York for that matter, at now, if they move into Tennessee, I'm not too sure about what the grace period is, but they have a period of time before they have to acquire the Tennessee certification to teach,
Right.
and that's a hindrance to recruitment.
Mm-hmm.
It's a hindrance, I would say, even for someone that possibly maybe doesn't go to school in state, is from Tennessee, doesn't go to school in state, but maybe has the plan or the desire to come back and teach.
Right. So you go up
Uh,
to
but
go up to Lexington or whatever to go to UK,
right,
get your degree teaching there, and you're going to be with that degree. You're essentially going to be certified in the state of Kentucky, but not in Tennessee. And
right,
so, we sent you off into the rest of the world to get a better education, but it's a pain in the ass for you to come back to apply that education locally because of the way the teaching certification system works.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Also, when we talk about funding, I am not a fan of vouchers or ESAs or
Okay.
charter schools.
Hmm.
I'm honestly not a fan of. I'm not a fan of any measure that takes public dollars from public schools. I don't think that's the answer. I think what you just said is the answer. We need more involvement at the local level. There needs to be greater accountability, not only to our school board representatives, but also to our school district leadership. So the superintendent and his staff, I
Right.
think, needs to be held greater accountable for the policies they make and implement and how they affect our customers,
Right.
which are the students and the families,
Right.
you
But
know.
see, for me, like, I don't know, like, I haven't dug a ton into the voucher system, but I like the idea of any government body, but staying on the school board for it. I like the idea of a principal, in this case, with their staff competing for students, wanting more students in their school, and that's how they get funded. And so I kind of, the base premise of the voucher idea I kind of like, because I think there is a one of my personal big things, and it's government across the board, is that things that I understand that need to be government controlled, maybe not be the right word, but at least centrally run, government run. I think we have a big problem with the proper incentives in place, whether it's the private prison system or the police departments or the schools for that matter. The incentive for the people that are actually, especially the administrators, not the teachers themselves, the incentive is not in the current system, without a voucher system, without the threat of loss of funds, I guess, for lack of a better way to say it. So making them compete more for their dollars, for their students, because the better they run their offices and the better they put their things together, the better teachers they hire, the more students they're going to get, the more students they get, the more funding they get. I don't know if the voucher system is the correct program for that, but having, as a parent, having the ability to say, listen, just because I live in the Rocky Hill School District, Rocky Hill sucks. It's not true. I think Rocky Hill's fantastic, but I have a problem with X, Y, and Z, and other than going full private school, which I can't afford, I have no options but to deal with the fact that my school that it's either move, which isn't cheap, private school, which isn't cheap, or deal with it. And I would like to see some sort of incentive for, you know, the school system having more need to respond to my need as the customer. Because realistically, if we want to call the schools a business, I, the parent and the customer, the student is the product. So I want my student to be as smart and functional and capable and well-rounded and all the different things that I want out of schools. You as the school are selling me, the parent, on that, because the kid's not going to want to buy that. The kid doesn't want to buy school time. I do, the parent. And so I think, I don't know, I'm not saying the voucher idea is the right idea, but I don't know if it's, I'm sure there's some system out there that somebody's done before that's kind of more in line with what I'm thinking, or maybe the voucher system is the closest it gets. But I'm that, as a parent, that's one of my concerns, is that if I'm in a situation where I can't afford private school, or I can't afford to move to a better school system, I'm stuck with the school I have, and that school has zero incentive to fix that for me.
Right. And that's what I'm saying. I believe that we need to have a system, and especially in dealing with education, I think all of our schools that are funded by public dollars need to operate at the same standard of excellence. It should not be where Hardin Valley is better than Powell or West is better than Austin East. That is not how it should be.
Right.
So let me just first say that. Now, I do agree that as a parent, you should be able to secure whatever resources and whatever plan of education that you feel will yield the greatest success for you and your child. Absolutely. But I am I believe that government is in place to alleviate disparities and not create them. And rather than us creating a system that would continue to remove resources from schools that are already strained and already struggling, I think we need to do the possibly longer, harder work of making sure every school has what it needs to be successful.
Okay.
And I believe that that's where we look into empowering our families and our communities. And once again, providing a plan of success for, excuse me,
You're good.
for every student.
Try being me today. I've got 4 of these. I've been very careful about my voice, trying to make sure I keep it all
Yeah.
day.
And so we in the state, I believe it's the state's job to step up. And even now, when we think about this current pandemic, I had the privilege to serve on the reentry task force for Knox County Schools, the community component. There were several. I represented District 1, and we were just looking at all of the variables that we're dealing with school starting back under this pandemic.
Right.
And the fact of the matter is, in order for us to provide a foolproof, safe environment for teachers and students, we are going to need more money.
Right.
And the dollars just are not there here in Knox County, but they're in Nashville. And for whatever reason, and they're in Washington too, but we're talking about state.
Right.
For whatever reason, our current leadership in the legislature and in the governor's mansion does not deem this as a time to really release some of those emergency funds. And
Right.
I think,
And that's one of the things, like, I'm very impressed with the history of the state of Tennessee and putting that rainy day fund in place, but you put it in place for a rainy day. Can't think of a much rainier day than we're in the middle
I
of right
think
now.
this is a rainy day.
Yeah,
I think
that's
this
what.
qualifies as a rainy day.
Yeah, I would think
And
so too.
I'll go even further to say, for no other reason but the schools,
Right.
right? I think we need to protect our most vulnerable population, and those are our children.
Right.
And when you think about it, and one of my professors from college said this to me, and I didn't even think about it like this. She said, Sam, think about it. She said, there are prisoners being released from prison because of COVID, nonviolent offenders, of course, but, persons are being released from incarceration because of COVID, right, as a safety precaution.
Mm-hmm.
But we're forcing children and families, to go, and teachers to go back into school,
Right.
And instead of providing, once again, the resources necessary so that every school district can keep a safe environment for the
Right.
staff and for the students.
Right. So yeah, I mean, that's again, for me, I got 2 kids, and we've made the decision that they're going back to physically go back to school.
Okay.
We are fortunate. I don't know if it's fortunate or not. We are in the situation where, as it appears to me, and I'm not a doctor, and actually one of my co-hosts is an RN, and he argues with me all the time about it. But as the stats show to me, it's not impossible, but it's unlikely that it's very low on the likelihood that either of the kids should have any real mal effects if they do actually get exposed to it. And then myself and my wife are probably on the lower percentage of having any real effects for it. And we're pretty insular as a family. My parents do live here in town, but just the way the world works and my relationship with my mom, we don't spend as much time together as maybe we should. So I'm not too worried about the effects directly on me. I understand other people's. I have no issue with people taking the virtual option. My experience in college was, I'm going to be a teacher. And then about a semester and a half in, I was like, I'm not cut out to be a teacher. And the idea of, I always put it like this, like, I have enough tension between me and my children trying to get them to clean their rooms, get them to do normal household stuff, to try to throw on top of that me trying to get them to do their schoolwork and to sit down and pay attention and study and stuff like that. It's like, I'm not even talking about all the social aspects of it, which is going to be interesting how the social aspects of the kids going back to school is going to be as well. But I don't know. I mean, it's such a rainy day event that I don't know what the right solution is. I think, honestly, in fairness, as much as I like to hate on Bob Thomas, I think this plan is about as good as you could come up with for the systems in place. I think there's some things they could do that one of the guys I listened to podcasts on, he was talking about his friend in California was pushing the idea of letting the teachers Zoom in, but having the students there and getting undergrads or college students who are going into teaching to be the in classroom kind of structure, but let the actual teacher Zoom in, so that the teacher, who tends to be a little older, especially in a lot of about half the teachers at Rocky Hill are probably in the danger zone, for lack of a better word. And so let them zoom in if they prefer that, so that the students still get a good, real, historically qualified, good teacher, and but they still get the social aspect. But it again takes down on the risk factors for the students and the faculty in that situation. So again, I don't know what the right answer is for what's going on right now, but the idea of keeping my kids locked up in this house much longer is it's too much for me, because I've been fortunate enough to be working through the whole thing. My wife's been intermittently working. Her business gets shut down and reopened and shut down, and just got shut down again today, technically. And so trying to keep everything in front of me and all the different stuff going on, I need the help of the schools to teach, as well as to socialize and kind of babysit my kids, for lack of a better word. It's important to me, especially the social aspects of it. I have some good friends that were homeschooled, and they have really hard times with certain social activities, and I don't want that for my kids either. But okay, so that's the school side of it. Let's move on to some other stuff. What's some other? So schools is number 1A for you. You're selling to the right crowd on that one, because schools are number 1A for me. What about what's next on your list of activities that you think are important?
Yeah. So economic empowerment. Broadly, I'll say economic development, but specifically economic empowerment. I think that our citizens need to be empowered to do what they want to do what they need to do to be able to make a living and have some type of a dignity to provide for their families. If someone needs access to resources to go back to school to get that degree or to get that trade certification, whatever that is, I think we need to create pathways for them to do that. If someone has a great idea to start up a small business, and to enable them to become an entrepreneur, I believe that we need to do that. It's, through small businesses, I believe that communities thrive.
Okay.
And that's what helps. That's what helps an economy to thrive, is when communities are thriving, right? When I'm in my home and there's a grocery store, right,
Right.
down the street that's owned by someone who lives locally
Right.
and shops there too, and then there's there's places to eat, there's all these opportunities for people to gain money, there's an opportunity for the community to grow and to thrive. And I think that we don't have that anymore
I agree.
in our present circumstance. And even with programs that are laid out, it's really still benefits those that kind of already have. And I would like for us to put something in place for someone that's starting at zero,
Right.
someone that's starting at ground zero. Someone, I didn't have a dad that left me 100K when he died. I don't have a warehouse left to me by my granddad that I can, someone that doesn't have any of that. What type of grants and opportunities and tax breaks can we put in place for them, so
Right.
that they can have an opportunity to maybe acquire a little more wealth for their family in generations to come?
Okay. Because I mean, I don't know, like the programs like that. I always find interesting. I don't know again, this is me not knowing answers, and that's fine. Because I am a small business owner. A buddy of mine and I started up a place about 6 years ago, and I mean, and we did it on our own. I did borrow money from my dad, in full disclosure, to do so. I don't think I could have pulled it off without him.
Hmm.
But
What's your business, may I ask?
we own a e-vape lounge. It's up off Emery Road. It's a vapor
Okay.
CBD hemp store.
Okay.
We're very proud of it. We've been 6 years now, and it's finally starting to actually pay us instead of us continuing to pay into it. It's been a
Oh,
long road to
great.
get there. So
And on that same note, let me just say, I believe that we need to also put in place policy that allows people to take part in enterprises, and one of those is decriminalizing cannabis.
I agree with
Okay.
that. That's something that we actually we've registered, and we've done some test plants. We haven't gotten full into it, but we have a hemp farm that we own technically. Right now, we're just trying to get our process right as far as growth and stuff like that. And part of the intent is that we do want to move that direction, when and if that becomes a thing here in Tennessee. I think Tennessee is, climate wise, very well structured and very well suited for hemp and THC rich product, or whatever you want to call it. And what's weird, and just for those that don't know, state of Tennessee is actually one of the nicest states for hemp growth.
Hmm.
There's very specific numbers of different cannabinoids that are allowed to be had to be called hemp, and Tennessee has probably the least restrictive version of their hemp regulation. So for those of you that are interested, there's definitely some different products out there that are already legal, not including the full marijuana legalization that we're talking about. And I think that's huge for the criminal aspect of things too. But again, going back to the beginning of that, and like how do we work those programs and those grants and those different things to give people the opportunity? Because I would have preferred to done it without my dad. I would have preferred to done it on my own. I was just not in a position to do so. And
Right.
my dad's
Right.
done well. And I'm probably better off with my dad because he's a little less strict about payments, but my dad's the type that insists it gets paid back. So I am paying that back, but like it's always to be, it's like, how do we, because it's an investment. It's truly an investment, whether it's a state level investment, whether it's a bank on its own investing. They're investing with the intent to get paid back, but it's still an investment in persons. And so to try to open up new avenues to new people and give them a shot with zero, like you said, as an investor, what I'm looking at that as the risk reward conversation. And so how do we administer some of these different programs in not a complete blank check format where it's somebody comes to me and I say, okay, do it, and then see what happens, and then they've got debt that they can't ever pay back, or being overly stringent where you're not giving them a chance because they don't have history. Because one of those things when you start getting into credit and trying to buy a house and all the different stuff, it's like nobody explains this stuff well. Nobody tells you
Right.
how to get it built up and ready to go, and now all of a sudden it's important, and you're starting at zero. So how do we administer these plans to execute them to get to get money in people's hands so that they can start a business or get that education that they missed or something like that.
Right. Well, I believe that we can do it in two ways. From the small business aspect, I believe that there can be some type of small business initiative from the Department of Commerce that focuses on first-time entrepreneurs or startup businesses. Um, I believe that we could also incentivize financial institutions to lend money. You
Okay.
know, how could we possibly offer some type of tax break or incentive to banks that will commit to lending um, money to persons with no, history or
Okay.
that don't have any, liquid assets or any like collateral
There
on
you go. Yeah.
hand to be able to secure this loan. And then one thing I think that we could focus on is see what we could do as far as interest rates.
Right.
If we could agree to keeping them low or at least keeping them fixed.
Right.
One thing that in my experience, now I've never gone and tried to start a business yet. I have a few ideas, and I'll get into that after this campaign. But um,
No, you won't. You're going to be working. You're going to be at this. You're going to be in
I know,
Nashville all the
right? This,
time.
yeah. Hopefully, I won't have time. I win, and I won't have time. But so for people that I know that started businesses that did not really end up well, it wasn't really because that it wasn't really because of the fact that they lost their clientele or people lost interest in the business. It was really how the loan was structured.
Right.
To be honest,
Yeah,
and
because
that's
you
really
don't get on your feet real fast. Those loans will catch up and hit you hard
yeah,
for sure.
yeah, and that's really what ends up taking them under.
Right.
I've heard that from several
Right.
people, several examples of that. So those are just a couple of things that we need to look at, and I believe that legalizing cannabis will be a move in the right
I think so
direction.
too. Because I think one of the things that's missing. I mean, we've got some the Brunswick Boat Group runs out of here, but like we don't make things as Americans anymore as a whole. We don't make things, and so anybody who's getting in the business of making something, I think we need to figure out how to get them on their feet and going and competitive. I mean, it's hard to compete when China's doing it with you know equivalent of like 10, 15 cents an hour.
Mhm.
If somehow it's cheaper to put it on a boat and send it across the largest ocean in the world than it is to make it next door.
Right.
And that boggles my mind, and I don't know how to fix that. That's a federal issue as well as a state issue as well as a local issue. How we get these companies to start making things again. I think this pandemic, if nothing else, has really illustrated how susceptible we are to anything disrupting the pipeline of getting things from way over wherever to here, and how dangerous that is as for Americans to just let other people make everything, and
Right.
how we fix those kind of problems.
Hmm.
Because I think it's huge for community, it's huge for local economics, and then again, it's a public safety issue. In for this example, it's a public safety issue to be so reliant on so far away to get you the things you need to get through
Hmm.
what essentially could have been, maybe, I don't know. I'm not going to go down the COVID conspiracy theory road or whatever, but could have been much better handled on a number of different levels, and one of those is access to the equipment needed. And one of the ones to me always sticks out is that China stopped shipping masks for a while. They're like, no, we need those for us right now. You'll get yours when we get ours. And I understand it on the Chinese standpoint too, whether it was intentional to screw with us or whether it was they actually needed them from themselves. I get that, but that's our fault. That's our fault for being dependent on them, and I think that's something we as a society need to figure out how to fix.
Right.
All right, so I don't know what else. One thing for me, I bring up with everybody, not that it's necessarily under your purview of this job title. I've got on a big stick about. I want to see Knoxville go metro. I think everybody agrees it's inevitable. That I've talked to so far, eventually 10, 15 years down the road, Knoxville is going to become one single governing body. Because like I said before, if you live in the city of Knoxville, you have city government, county government, school board, and then you get up to state, federal, and all that other stuff. And so I think Knoxville's at that point, and I'm always curious to see, even though it's not in your purview as far as this job goes, what your thoughts are on Knoxville going metro.
So yeah, I think that we need to look at that and weigh the pros and cons, right? I do, of course, understand the benefits of metro government. I had the opportunity to, like I said, be in undergrad when Charlotte and Mecklenburg County were going to metro government, and being able to really look and see how that played out. Charlotte is a more progressive area than Knox County. And so I will say this, um, why I am reluctant to say I will support that. I Are you from Knox County? Are you from this area?
I went to high school here. I moved down here when I was 15, 16.
Okay, okay. Well, I'm from here, and this area is not as progressive as a lot of people would like to make it out to be.
Mm-hmm.
And it just concerns me if I were to think that if there was just one set of leaders across the county that were selected by all the county residents. Because when I look at our county government, just to be honest, I don't really see a lot of diversity.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really see a lot of focus on it, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and so, and I see the city making huge strides in that.
Right, and
And
it has come to my attention, at least as far as the years have turned, that the county resident the residents in the county, 60 something percent live in the county and not in the city limits. And so, in what you're inferring to is that if the county is already red, essentially, that if the county takes over the city as well, the city will tend to a combined government would vote more red, as far as just because of sheer numbers of how many people are in county versus the city limits, residence
yeah,
wise.
and for me, I mean, it's not even about like a partisanship thing,
Mm-hmm.
right? I mean, I look at what people do
Right.
and not what platforms they stand on. And just to be honest with you, Seth, I mean, my entire life, you go into the city county building, and when you talk about top tier leadership, I've never really seen too many people that look like me.
Right.
It's very telling,
Right.
to the system.
Well, okay. So again, I'm not disagreeing with you whatsoever.
Mhm.
But in a democratic system, what's the demographics of Knoxville
The demographics of Knoxville. What do you
or
mean?
Knox County? I mean, it's just as far as, I mean, if as people that look like you, as you were saying, is there's what percentage of Knoxville is African American?
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, it's
I mean, one of the things, real quick, one of the things that I
about
found super
12%.
interesting is is, I'm about 50-50 on people I've talked to that are younger than me. I'm only 38, but,
Mhm.
younger than me that are active, that are really out here after it. I had Kyle Warden here. He's running for my county commission district. He's 34. Matthew Parker's just in here. He's 31.
Mhm.
So like the age part is coming down is what it looks like to me. The act, or maybe I'm just getting older and it's coming to my average as I age. But it seems like we have more younger persons active. Yourself,
Mhm.
I guess you're what, 32, 34?
I'm 33.
33. I was I was all over it, but I missed the mark. But and so I'm very encouraged by the age coming down in the different candidates that are running that I'm talking to. I think that's great. But I guess going back to my initial question is that you know I've had these arguments with the other guys on the main show a number of different times when we talk about different either elected officials or different crime statistics and all the different stuff, and where some of the true discrepancy in how the law is applied is like you get those what like 60% of the prison population is African American, but only like 16% of the national population is African American. There's got to be something in there that's where is that disconnect coming? Because if it was more it seems illogical that somehow a smaller percentage of the people is doing more of the bad stuff. It just doesn't seem right. There seems like there's something else going on in there, and that's what we're looking at. That's what the big Black Lives Matter and all this different movement and this conversation we're having nationally right now is very important. And so I guess what I was like, I see what you're saying. I mean, we had Ruggiero before and India Kincaid, but as far as any, I don't know of. And again, this is me getting deeper into the politics. I was very, very outside going in. So I agree that in the history that I understand it, there is not a lot of diversity in Knoxville leadership.
Mhm. When
And
I was speaking specifically Knox County
okay,
in our county government.
see again, this is me assuming a metro that isn't there because I think it's logical that it is there because it's all. I mean, they all run out of the same building. Well, now two buildings, but all this different little stuff that's going on because and there's a lot of stuff that Knox City and County have kind of like agreed on. Well, you take care of this thing, we'll take care of that thing. I mean, the school board is a countywide thing. The city doesn't have a separate school board. The detention center is under the sheriff's office, but all the city stuff goes in there. The courts are split up, where the only thing city courts does is like tickets and stuff. So any other criminal stuff goes through the county justice system, for lack of a better word. And so I'm encouraged with the different people I've been talking to. Sharif Gundi was a very fun, and that's a very cool office that when you are elected, you need to do what you can. That's one of my big ones. The public defender's office here in Knoxville is
Mhm.
one of the coolest things Knoxville does. If you're talking about the lack of good government, progressive, trying to move forward kind of things, that Knox County Public Defender's office is at least the leading edge of the of what Knoxville does that is at least progressive and new and changing the way government interacts with the people. I think that one's a great one.
Mhm.
But I don't know. I kind of rambled off into nowhere there. I apologize.
Oh no, not at
So
all.
you don't see you when you go, and again, I don't see me when I turn on the news either. That's where this came up for me. Like we started doing this podcast because we don't see us.
Mhm.
As far as people that talk and think like us, that treat others the way we feel like we treat others and things like that. So I totally get the idea of not being feeling a little bit left out of certain sections of things that are going on around you.
Mhm. Mhm. And so that's my only hesitation. I do think that, like I said, there are benefits to it financially, of
Right.
course. There are economic benefits to it. Um, Not too much would really change with the schools. I would say that they would give us an opportunity to revisit the charter,
Right.
maybe, because I would like to see city dollars be kind of geared towards city schools, because I know that we talk about, public schools being, funded, but s- because of the property taxes in certain neighborhoods and because of the communities that are in certain schools just have more support.
Right.
And right now, in the charter for the school system, the money that the city pays, it is dispersed evenly
Right.
throughout the district. And
Right.
I would like to see just, you know, more support go to our city schools, because if we want parents to send their children there, and schools, as our neighborhoods are diversifying, there's more diversity coming into Park Ridge and to downtown. But that is, for whatever reason, happening a little at a slower rate with the schools. And I'm not going to make any assumptions about what that's about, but yeah, people are moving in, but they're not sending their kids to the community schools.
Right.
Then one could argue that the schools aren't that great, but they're not going to be that great if everyone is wanting, having this
Right.
attitude, wanting to not associate with the school. So,
Right, and especially if a voucher program or something comes out and you're taking money out of that school, it's never going to catch up
right,
to what we're
right,
talking about. Yeah, for sure.
right.
And like I said, I generally argue as a libertarian, so the less government's the better government for me.
Mhm.
But I try to come at it as a realist. My anarchist libertarianism is not a real thing. It's an ideal, it's a direction to move towards, but I don't think it's something that could really function. I understand that. Don't tell anybody else that, at least none of my co-hosts, because they'll get mad, or they're going to hammer me when they hear it. So,
Right.
but I mean, I think there's need for things, and there's need to do stuff, and there's need to support. But it's always it tends to me when I see government attempts, and I'll use that word as a libertarian, their attempts to help. It seems that it gets so bloated with confusion, and it just tends to miss the mark because it's too big. There's too much going on instead of very simple. Let's fix this thing. Here's a plan of action on how we're going to fix this thing. And by the time you get to start that plan, 55 other things come in, and then it gets lost in the wash. And that's one of the things where I'm very disenchanted with how I see government working, which is why I'm trying really hard to get more local and see how this actually works, to see if my assumption of what I see on the federal level applies locally or not.
Gotcha.
And so I don't know. I'm infinitely surprised when I'm speaking to people, especially who historically, by party or something like that, I don't have a lot that I would think I would have in common that I agree with. And more that I agree with it, there's ideas out there, and that I'm getting behind the idea that there are more ideas and there's other options and there's other ways that I used to be a little bit more strict on, where it's like, nope, my idea is the best. Everybody else shut up.
Right.
That's not who I am anymore. And I kind of appreciate that accidentally, which is not the intent of this. I wasn't trying to grow as a person by doing this podcast, but hopefully I am a little bit. So I don't know. Let's move on to something something else that you're excited about, that you're interested in, that you think you can help change for the betterment of Knox County.
Absolutely. Dealing with that, another part of my platform, excuse me, is a civic engagement. I believe that government works better. I think everybody is served best when there are more people participating. I believe creating pathways for people to participate in voting, creating pathways for people to participate in government and to serve, I think is just yields better policy.
Yeah.
People are inspired when they see that, hey, I went and I cast my vote for this person and they won.
Right.
And they did this for me. That gets people engaged, and that's how we get better policy. The
Right.
reason why policy gets passed and there's some type of loophole, or there's some group that's left out, or there's some T that's not crossed, or I that's not dotted, is because there was someone in the room that was not represented, a group in the room whose concerns were not there.
Right. Or the group wasn't even in the room because they weren't invited to the conversation.
Or they weren't invited to the conversation.
Right.
Right. And so I think we need to change that culture.
Right. I agree with that. Like, 'cause, I mean, one of the big things that I've been pitching a fit about as I've been getting into this is District 6 for your election. I'm District 15 for the House election. I'm District 4 for County Commission. I'm District 2 for school board. I don't remember what school board district I am. I don't have one on this election, so it's not on my top of my thought process. It's like I'm trying to keep track of all these different just numbers and then figure out who is actually my representative. I had no idea how big the your state 6 seat was. I didn't realize it was that much of Knox County. I assumed it was more like the District 18, which in the House of Reps is just like northwest Knoxville, or west northwest Knoxville, excuse me. And so trying to figure out who is in this voting block, and then we got the federal Senate thing going on with all those guys, and
Right.
there's like 17 on the Republican side, at least on my sample ballot of people, and I haven't even begun, and I've got 2 days to figure it out, and so like that's one of the things I'm really excited about, is hopefully we can get some kind of or some election commission stuff in here, asking the questions on why they're drawn this way. Like, can we simplify that part of the system so that I know that, you know, like, well, I don't know, what would make sense to me is that you'd have maybe work it around the high schools. So each high school and the feeder communities that go into that high school are all District 1 of Knox
Mm-hmm.
County. And then
Mm-hmm.
District 1, 2, and 3 in Knox County are state Senate seat 6. And, something that it kind of follows that same logic, because I know from the school system, that I know what elementary, what middle, what high school, because they all run into each other. And so why can't we put a more logical system in place for voting, so we know who we're voting for, and that we know when I drive down the street that sign is actually applied to me, because I live right on the edge of city county. And so I get all sorts of city ballots and city stuff going on, and
Okay.
I start researching them, and then I realize, like, I had this a couple of elections ago, but I was there, I had a candidate, I was like, yes, I'm voting for that person, they're great, and I go into the ballot box and they're not on my ballot, because my voting
Mm.
location serves both city and county. But since I'm a
Gotcha.
county resident, I only get county stuff. And so I agree with you, like simplification of just the process of how to get involved, of where to get involved, of who your actual representatives are and where they go and what they do. Again, for us in this show, it's like, I don't know what people do in these elected positions. I don't know what these positions necessarily are in charge of, because it's like, you and Gina Oster and almost everybody talks about how important education is. But it's like, the school board, as far as I understand it, in Knox County kind of operates independently. So I know there is budget things that you can help with, and there's state level funding that comes down. But like in school policy, figuring all those things out is, in my understanding, seems to be a separate kind of divide for us in the way that our local works. And so, I'm very like, again, like the further I get into this, the more it concerns me on how complicated it is. The gerrymandering, like we were talking about earlier, the traditional, this part of town is this color, this part of town is that color, both racially and not necessarily racially, but there are parts of town where Knoxville is a very divided town, and as far as where people live. But I was more going on the political side of it. This part of town is red, this part of town is blue, and again, for me personally, this red and blue thing could go away, and I'd be great.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I was very impressed with Eddie Manis when he was here, because he had no qualms about saying, no, I don't always vote Republican. Just
Right.
because I'm running as a Republican and I do identify more as a Republican, doesn't mean that if there's a crappy Republican for the job, I'm not going to vote for him.
Right.
And me traditionally, I would consider myself traditionally more of a Republican than anything. But I wasn't voting for Trump. I'm not going to vote for him again. I don't care. It doesn't matter if that's my party affiliation, which it's not anymore. I'd call myself a libertarian, like I said. But I don't. There's if you're only voting for a party, then it doesn't matter who's in the suit. Is the kind of my stance on it.
Right.
If you're just voting for a D, it's a D, and it's just a D in a suit. And if that's what you expect out of them, then why do we have people at all? Why don't we just
Right.
have the party put up who they want, and you just vote for a party? You don't vote for a person. And I think that's a terrible part of the system, and I think we need to do better at, as a community as large. And I think, it goes into that term limits thing. I'm a strong opponent of term limits. I think the idea that we have the Pelosi's and Mitch McConnell's and Senator Lewis, who just passed, and which is a bummer, but that have been there forever. I mean,
Right.
we got Biden, who the only reason he's not a senator anymore is because he was vice president for a while.
Right.
And he never went back to work in the Senate, because after his vice president run, it's like, we got these guys that are in these offices for 20, 30 years. That's our fault. We need to vote better. We need to say no. Don't go back. You don't need 20, 30, 40-year people in these offices. We need to do better. And I have nothing against Massey personally. I've not met and spoken to her yet. It's on my agenda. But to me, it's if you're getting voted in again and again and again, you better be good.
Yeah.
And you better be good every day, all day. And that's the only reason. If the only reason is because this district only votes red all the time and nobody runs against you on the red side of it, then we suck as citizens. It's our fault. We need to do better. You can't expect somebody to keep winning and change what they're doing if they're winning for no good reason. That's my stance on it. I don't know. I got way deep in the fields on that one. But I mean, that's what we do. Like I said, we don't. We know we're not structured, and we're trying to have a good time. We're trying to learn people. And I think it's great what you're doing. I think your history, your insight on stuff. I think you have a you have a viewpoint, and that's one of the things that a lot of politicians lack. They just say the words that people want to hear. And I think that's another one of the problems that at least you and a couple other people I've talked to so far, they're happy to say, this is what I want, this is how I want to do it. And I think that's important. So let's do, I don't know, is there anything else specific you want to get onto, or
No, that was it. Those are my three platforms, and also, and this is also is coupled with our economic development for the state.
mhm.
We need to expand Medicaid.
Okay.
We're missing out on money. Tennesseans are becoming sick. They're dying, and I believe that we have yet to see the implications of this very heartless decision to not expand Medicaid because of politics. And I
Mhm.
think that is what gets in the way of government, is when we allow politics and particularly partisanship to creep in. I understand we kind of polarized during election time, but when we're in office, we're supposed to deliver for the people.
Right.
And I know people have their opinions about the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act. And I don't think it's a perfect piece of legislation, but please show me one. Um,
I've got one, but it's a bigger animal than I think's can happen at this point, which is the bummer to
mhm,
me. Again, the
yeah,
libertarian says let the free market do what the free market does. I think
mhm,
if we had hospitals fighting like we have a McDonald's and a Cheddar's fighting on, every every little section of town has their restaurant row where there's 15 restaurants all right next to each other,
mhm,
and they compete full out all day every day. That's what they do, and
mhm,
hospitals don't play that game.
mhm,
And I think you and I, the citizen, the patient, are the ones that pay for that lack of real competition.
mhm.
But like you said, we could go down that one for a long time.
Oh
and
yeah, we
and I
could.
think and I think especially right now with the pandemic going on and stuff, I think this is a big issue. And I think I would love to see some real well thought out different a number of different methods, and people really step off of the platform, the party platform, the partisanship, and really sit down and look at it as a complete entity of its own, and say, this thing, can this work? Is this something that is it, does it cost a little more than I want to spend? Maybe. But like somebody else I talked to said it best. It's like, if the system's already broken, let's start over. Let's do something new. If it already doesn't work, something new might not work, and we're nowhere far. We're not far off of where we are if the next one doesn't work either. But at least we're
Mhm,
trying to change something instead of just continuing to beat our heads against the wall.
mhm.
So, all right. So let's give your contact, your any way people can get in touch, learn more about you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Seth. This was great. You can find us on our website at Sam, the number four, Senate, the number 6.com. That's Sam for Senate 6.com. That's also our handle on social media, Twitter and Instagram and Facebook, Sam for Senate 6. Or you can email us at Sam for Senate 6 at gmail.com. Or you can call or cell. It's 865 456 3357. And there on the website, you see where you can give to us, donate to the campaign. We are still taking donations all the way up until the very, very last day, election day, or you can cash app us. We have or accept donations via ActBlue or Cash App. So please reach out to us. We'd love to talk the issues with you, see exactly what you will want us to do
Right.
when we go to Nashville. And let me just, if I can, just for a moment, just for a few seconds, just kind of talk about that, Seth. One thing that I take very seriously in our democracy is the fact that we have a republic,
Mm-hmm.
and we are elected to go and represent you. And you have my word that I will not go to represent any constituency where I go to serve my own interests.
Right.
The purpose of our government, the purpose of the representative democracy that we have, is that we elect representatives to make laws for us. So it is my job to go and basically represent your interests, not my own.
Yeah. Excellent. That is so true, and it's so painful that thought right there that you had isn't normal, and
Right.
that it's because one of the questions I usually ask, and I guess it's came up, is this step one for you to continue on in career politics, or is this just you want to do your best and then move on with your life?
Well, so I'll tell you, Seth, and I don't mind saying it. This is my first time, I guess, saying it publicly as we're getting closer to
Ooh, exclusive.
but no, this is not my last race.
Okay.
I'll say that.
Okay.
This is not my last race.
And like I said, like if this is a this is a term seat, but a non-term limited seat, and I have no issues. If you do the job right, then I want to elect you again. I don't want you to not be allowed to run because you did it twice and that's all you're allowed to do. If you're doing a good job, I want you to be able to. That's my argument all the way down. Run forever. Do good work and run forever. That's fine with me. Just do good work and don't become about me or about you instead of about us. As long as that thing stays there, and I as a constituent can see that, then I don't see any reason why you shouldn't run again. Change office, do something new, stay active in it. That's I think there are people out there, and there have been in different offices in the past that they do good work, and I don't like the idea of kicking somebody out just because they've been there too long by some arbitrary 2-term limit or whatever. So, Sam, I can't thank you enough. This was great. I will put all those. I will put some links to all this different stuff in the show notes. I'll have it out hopefully in the next half hour, 45 minutes. Get out and vote, everybody. August 6th. So shut down music. Oops. Got to turn the fader up. So that was Sam Brown, everybody. Sam4Senate6.com. I got one more coming up a little later this afternoon, which is Jane George, his directed opponent in this primary. August 6th. Get in there. Get your votes in. Do your best to be a part of this community because I think that's what we're all missing. We are almost in agreement at gmail.com. YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, almost every podcast out there, any of the podcasts that you listen to, we should be available on there. If not, give me an email. If you have a podcaster that you like, a podcast system that you like, and we're not on it, shoot us an email. I'll figure out how to get on it. Unless it costs $1 gajillion, we'll get in. I want people to hear us, and I want people especially to hear these candidates that we have. Guys, thank you so much. Have a great afternoon.